Nithyanandam, I just wanted to share about Nithyananda Gurukul and some of my experiences. My background is basically I kind of started doing some seeking of the purpose of life in around 1999, and I ended up studying for 6 years at Concordia University in Montreal. I got a Bachelor of Arts specialization in early childhood and elementary education with a minor in history um, after 6 years. So don't judge me on that. It took maybe a little bit longer than it might have taken some people. But I was really looking for the purpose of life, and I wanted to take as much time as I could. I didn't find it. Anyway, I think that's beside the point of this video. Um, what I wanted to say is that yes, so I've worked in schools in 4 countries. I spent some time in Sweden, also in outdoor preschools and that kind of thing. And of course studied education a lot globally. I've worked in approximately 30 different schools with over 100 different teachers, and that time spans basically from like 1999 till now. Um, anyway, just to get a little glimpse of some of what my background might have been. And I worked specifically also as a assistant teacher with children with special needs, and I worked a lot in home environments with children and adolescents and youth and adults with brain problems. Um, anyway, so when I first kind of encountered Gurukul was in like 2011 when I went to Bididi, Bengaluru Adinam, and I was blessed with the opportunity basically to operate a kind of interview talk show before morning puja, I think it was. And so a lot of times, we had the amazing opportunity to have um, Balasanths, students from the Gurukul, come and talk. And that's why I've been studying education for many years. I met a lot of kids in a lot of different situations, even like inner city schools in Montreal. Like I said, out to outdoor preschools and schools in Sweden. But I've never, like, the thing is, what happens with kids, right, is when you're 2 years old, everything's fine. You're just happy, and I mean, you're on. If you're crying or angry, whatever, you're on. You're either like 100% on or sleeping. But when you get through the ages of 5, 6, 7, 8, kids start to develop incompletions, ideas about what they can and can't do. That's basically in a sense where the ego gets formed. And then we never break through that. We never break through to that energetic spontaneity that we'd had when we were 2 years old, which is what you see with the enlightened beings is they're not limited. They're spontaneous and overflowing in energy. So that's what needs to be maintained. But no one knows how to do that. Children go through the traumatic experiences of really solidifying what their identity can and can't be. And then our whole life. That's why you meet someone who's 67 years old and you're like, why are you acting like a 5-year-old? Right? Everyone we know, we can know that we've thought that about them at sometimes. This is why, because you develop a breaking incompletion in your psyche, in your inner space from that age of 4, 5, or 6, and it never gets resolved. So that spontaneity that you were before that age never gets to be expressed ever again. So what you need is a spiritual master who knows the spiritual qualities, who can unlock that for you and keep you open. So the blessing is when you're a child, never developing that incompletion, always being in that space of overflowing energy. And of course, you need an enlightened being to handle overflowing energy of so many number of kids, right? Without going crazy, right? You have to allow for that ultimate spontaneity, but have a structure that is like going to be beneficial. Like there has to be, effective purpose that makes results too, right? So really, only the enlightened being who's in that spiritual space can maintain that, allow for the spontaneity, but still give the spiritual guidance, because it comes from inside, not from outside. This is why, like, basically modern kind of, institutional school teachers cannot achieve that, because they don't have the depth, strength, and centering on the inner space that's required to allow for all those different possibilities. So anyway, when it was so amazing. I had been following Swamiji since about 2008. And so in 2011, I got the chance to do these interviews and kind of start to learn about the kids in Gurukul. Like we used to do interviews like under the banyan tree and stuff. We'd go set up in the morning. They'd help me set up so they're starting to learn how to use the mics and stuff. And anyway, so I had a little bit of time with them just kind of before we went live and after we were live and what we're going to talk about today and all that kind of stuff. And the thing that really clicked with me was, like, Swamiji says stuff and we just, your initial reaction is like, I don't know how that's possible. How can what he's saying be true? And, a lot of, vision that he's manifesting that initially we may have doubts about, so the thing for me was, I was just, I always thought, how is Swamiji going to do all these things that he's saying? So many projects, so few people, so much work to do. And, it's so many, even hundreds of or thousands of years in the future. Like, how is this all going to happen? How is it possible? And I didn't quite know. When I met the kids, when I saw the kids, when I met the kids, that's how I knew. It just clicked. Oh, this is how everything's going to happen. Kids, enlightened kids. Because as adults, when you get the spiritual teaching, you still have biases, and you're like, whatever the biases are, that still manifests, right? But the kids, they're kids. They have that like open love, and they can relate to anyone from a child's space, right? An innocent space. So you really see that, especially when the kids do lead programs and teach meditation programs and stuff, how they can connect with anyone, right? A kid can connect with anyone because they're open. So when I met the kids, I was like, oh, now I see how it's going to happen through enlightened kids, right? Enlightened kids who get it will grow up through Swamiji's Gurukul. Those kind of kids is just amazing, right? They don't have any incompletions, no biases, no discrimination. They can go anywhere in the world and relate to anyone, like in the child space, to that person's child space. So immediately connect to anyone. So that was what I saw after, having worked in literally 30 different schools in 4 countries for such a long time. I've never seen like the space of spontaneity that each child in Nithyananda Gurukul had. Every child. I'm not saying they all were equal or they all could do everything, but they all had this space of spontaneous powerfulness, right? Because a 2-year-old is powerful. They're very powerful. They may not be happy, but they're powerful. But the 9-year-olds in like grade 4 or 5 in like inner city school, they're not all powerful, right? They're not all like spontaneous, intelligent, expressing. They're all, starting to get reserved and block stuff. And that was the thing. It's just all the kids in Nithyananda Gurukul, all the students had such a clear, spontaneous, powerful space about stuff. Even if it was their doubt, they were powerfully doubting, powerfully asking questions, powerfully exploring with confidence, not like avoiding it. I experienced it, I saw it, and I knew that was something like, and I saw it with, the thing was that I saw it with every single child had that spontaneity, right? Not everyone would be fully engaged in 1 or 2 of the different activities or whatever, but every single one of them, no matter what was the age, had that spontaneous, calm space of completion. If they weren't doing that activity, they weren't feeling powerless about it. They were, feeling, being complete, and that they were spontaneously, energetically ready to engage in something else fully also, even if they weren't necessarily engaged in something at that point. The space of powerlessness was not there. And so anyway, that was something that I've never seen in really any child ever before, let alone an entire group. So what my understanding was at that point was that every single child in Nithyananda Gurukul was at a completely different level. It wasn't just like the best readers in the class, the best math person in the class, the best athlete in the class. This was a different level completely. It wasn't even about what they're good at. It was about them being free, spontaneous, expressive, no depression or powerlessness. And I remember just knowing, wow, every single child in this Gurukul is on a completely different level. Like even the kids who were in the outdoor preschool that I was in, having an enlightened master teach you and keep your inner space clean without doubts it's a different thing. We gravitate towards learning stuff, towards like solidifying our understandings, towards strengthening our ego and like the things that we're good at, and like relying on those things. That's what we do. And in that process, we ignore other parts of us that we're afraid of or that we were taught that we shouldn't have, and that gets blocked forever, which is an energy source. So the spontaneity is blocked, the intelligence and expression is blocked. So when I saw these kids, these Gurukul students, it was like every single one of them was on a completely different level. It wasn't like 1 to 10, they were like 8 or 9. It was like they were on a different scale altogether because of their potential capabilities that was still there to engage and learn. And I was just like, wow, every single child here is on a completely different level than any child I've ever seen before. Even the best kids I've seen before of like abilities, their spontaneity is not there. That spontaneous intelligence, confidence to explore and live like the 2-year-old is doing, it goes away. So when I saw that, it was a big click for me. I was like, oh, it makes sense. This is how everything that Swamiji says is going to happen. Because naturally, people who do recognize Swamiji, the children will be born there and born as enlightened beings and raised as enlightened beings and go through the scientific process of recreating avatars. And that childlike space, innocent space, can go anywhere in the world and connect with anyone. So that's like an unstoppable, enriching kind of force. So I just wanted to share that super click that I had when I first got to interact with some of the Balasanths of Nithyananda Gurukul. And so I'll put a link down there for everyone to get involved with Nithyananda Gurukul. And just comments and questions, please leave them. Thank you, Nithyanandam.